say is in the pill you took today. In the year 45, ain't gonna need your teeth, won't need your eyes. You won't find a thing to chew. Nobody's gonna look at you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, wouldn't you know it, he too was drafted as a giant robot pilot at the age of 15, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
He's just a boy.
And we're Gundam glad he's back, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and you can put people inside robots, but there's still no cure for chronic halitosis.
No, oof. You ever, oh my gosh, it is the worst when you meet somebody who has halitosis and they always want to tell you secrets. They're getting up in your face. I don't know why, but like TV tends to have that. When I was working in news, there would always be somebody who wants to supervise or edit a little bit that has that stank breath that just comes in there and you're like, quick on them notes. Let's go. Let's get them going fast here.
It's just the thing where it starts to make you paranoid that your own breath must smell bad.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
you're
you guys are literally like nailing one of my biggest fears in the world right now.
Isn't it terrible? You're just like, is this me? Am I the one that's doing it?
No, I have it because when you drink 1 million gallons of coffee and smoke 1,000 cigarettes like I do a day, the last thing you want to have is like, oh, hey, look at everybody checking all the boxes of what that looks like. and so I have as many breath mints or as much gum on me as I do cigarettes. So like I am always popping breath mints. I'm always just so I never have to deal with that kind of. It is one of my biggest fears.
Can I tell you this
regularly?
I will say this. I don't think that I've ever witnessed a bad Sean breath moment. So as far as I'm concerned, you're batting 1,000.
Very good. Thank you.
Batting 1,000. Well, we want to welcome back everybody to not only Hero Movie Podcast, but it's May. And of course, it is still anime.
It's gonna be
anime, get it? All right. So today we're covering a movie from Sean. Sean, what have you chosen for us this lovely week? This lovely anime week?
So I had a lot to choose from, but there was one thing that I always wanted to get into. Even from the time where I was in high school, I started hearing about this, and I never had access to it. And it's Mobile Suit Gundam. Anything Gundam, I just wanted to know what it was about. And so this week, like a couple of weeks ago when we started talking about this, I started looking into what all we could watch. And one of the things that came up was that Mobile Suit Gundam 1, the movie, is on Netflix. And so I was like, oh, that's perfect. Let's watch that. And so everybody seemed to be on board. Everybody was like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. And then we watched it.
We'll get into all of that and what we thought of it. But before we do want to say a giant thank you to the people who support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Doesn't matter what level you support the show, pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And of course, get to watch a vote on a movie that we watch every single month. And of course, guess what? This month, you're all going to get anime choices because that's how we roll here in anime. So we'd like to thank you guys again for supporting this show week after week, month after month, for actually year after year at this point. So thank you guys so much for all of that good stuff. And we really appreciate you. And as always, if you can't afford to do that, just ring us up and on the iTunes there. Give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
Or any of those other fine places. Share it with your friends, all that kind of good stuff. So appreciate you, boys and girls. All right. Believe it or not, I actually have a short English trailer for this that honestly, I wasn't going to play it at first, but it kind of talks about the plot a little bit, which I think is probably very helpful for this. So here's a trailer for Mobile Suit Gundam.
The year is 0079 of the Universal Century. With the creation of orbiting space colonies, man has taken to the stars. However, all is not well. Launching an all-out war for independence, the Principality of Zeon unleashes their assault against the Earth Federation, utilizing advanced war machines known as mobile suits. Thrust into battle, an inexperienced crew must protect the Federation's prototype Gundam if they are to survive.
Do you know what you're saying? If we let him go, the Federation will... Huh? It's standing! You won't get away! I'll get you!
Facing a powerful enemy, can Amuro harness the power of the Gundam? Or will he face the ultimate defeat?
Alrighty, that is the trailer for Mobile Suit Gundam. It's got a little bit of that plot in there, which I was like, I don't know how I could say that, so I'll leave that up to somebody else. But you know what time it is. Oh, come on, darn it.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do we got?
Mobile Suit Gundam was an original anime before it was novelized and adapted to manga. But that doesn't mean it didn't have some important influences. Most notably, the mobile suits of the show were inspired by the powered armor from Starship Troopers. And I do mean the 1959 sci-fi novel and not the classic Casper Van Dien vehicle that actually came out years after Gundam. It was also important to series writer / director / creator Yoshiyuki Tomino that the humanoid robots have an appearance that would appeal to a broad range of ages and not just young children. And I guess that's why those Gundams are so darn sexy, am I right?
Ooh, yeah.
Now, in science fiction anime and television of the late 70s, the bad guys were always aliens. And Mobile Suit Gundam was one of the first to have humans as antagonists, and by extension to make it sometimes unclear who the bad guy really is. You see, Yoshiyuki Tomino was born in Japan during World War II, so he had some thoughts about war. Mainly, he thought it wasn't a good thing, and he understood that sometimes you have to have a flexible morality when it comes to good guys and bad guys in human conflicts. I mean, after all, one guy's freedom fighters, well, that's another guy's terrorist and all that. So Yoshiyuki Tomino wanted to tell a story about war specifically inspired by Japanese aggression in Manchuria in 1939. Did you guys pick up on that when you were watching this? Were you like, oh man, this is the story of Japanese aggression in Manchuria in 1939?
I didn't want to say it out loud because I just wanted to wait for the comic book connection, so I don't want to be rude.
Well, if you want to know more about what Japan did in Manchuria, well, this isn't the podcast for that. Go check out Hardcore History Supernova in the East episodes for that. But the TLDR is that it was a bummer. Now, Gundam episodes, when I lost my spot there. Japanese opinions on war and man's inhumanity to man has long informed the media that the nation has produced, and anime is no exception. When I watch these original Gundam episodes, I can see the blueprint, the rough draft, maybe even the roadmap to my all-time favorite anime, Attack on Titan. And it's amazing how many parallels there are. Perhaps if the Patreon vote goes a certain way, we'll get to talk about it more. But believe it or not, Mobile Suit Gundam was not an immediate hit, but it got propelled to greatness by toys, because boy howdy, this is a show made for toys, or more specifically, Bandai Gunpla models. I don't think I've seen any other anime better represented by models, figures, and robots of all sizes than Gundam. It's not uncommon for some folks to simply refer to all mechas as Gundams, even when they're not official Gundam-style mechs. So, Adam, how about you climb out of that homemade Gundam you built from an old vacuum cleaner and 2 overhead projectors and give us that list?
Yeah, this suit sucks because it's a vacuum cleaner, see?
Or like Voyagers. Explorers, I'm sorry.
The comic book connection, well, it wasn't enough for you guys. Let me sell everybody on our second entry into anime here, because this sucker's got everything. We've got giant robots galore, green robots, red robots, Voltron-colored robots. We've got a 15-year-old kid who's going to be the future of all guys who are in robot suits. The perfect job for a 15-year-old, if you ask me. We've got a guy in a silver samurai hat. We've got bullets flying with people running out of ammo, a rare thing in movies. A little blonde girl who you simultaneously want to hug and throw out a window. We got more loadouts than you've ever seen in any movie ever, and it only takes 2.5 hours. This movie has everything.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's the runtime. The runtime is martyr. It's moiter.
If this was 90 minutes, it would have been a much better time.
80 minutes.
Even you're right. Even 80 minutes would have been and brisket up.
Also,
baby.
We got to go ahead and mention, I don't know if either of you knew this or have mentioned this, but this isn't a movie. This is like 20 episodes of season 1 of the television show, all like smushed together into this 2-hour 19.
That was one of my questions, because that's what it feels like, because it kind of, it ramps up and then it comes down, and then it ramps up.
You can tell, like, you got the episode 1's battle, episode 2's battle, episode 3's battle, and it starts to feel a little repetitive.
This makes a whole lot more sense now.
Yes.
I've watched the actual individual episodes, and it is a better watch that way. But still, you can get the idea when you're watching this why this wasn't an immediate hit. but there's also like the Seed. This may be one of the first darkest, purest anti-war animes out there, and it has had such a long history. Like more recently, there's a series called Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, and I mean it continues to like look at the horrific toll that war takes on humans. And I mean it's been interpreted in so many ways. There was even a Gundam show that was all about like people playing a Gundam video game, and like they weren't even really there. It was kind of like a Ready Player One type thing, a Portal story. So it has spun out so many interesting novels and comics and sequel series, spin-off series inspired by series. But it all started here, and this was trying to do something new. I mean, the people that are framed as the villains are actually colonists who want their independence. I mean, like, and it's not hitting you over the head with the fact that the people they're painting as bad guys actually aren't bad guys. Like, you have to figure that out on your own. Like, as a young kid, when you're watching it, it's not going to make sense at all. But then as you start getting into deeper episodes or deeper into the movie here, if you're watching this movie version, and you're seeing like the lieutenants from the Earth forces are actually just as big of a jerk as the enemy lieutenants are. And then Char is charismatic to a degree that like you could see him actually becoming the hero of the series as it plays on out. You know, even though he's painted as like the big racer, not Racer X, but he's painted as like the villain who you think is going to be somebody's brother or something by the end, but it doesn't really follow those kind of tropes here.
Well, you know, and I'm glad that you're bringing it up like this, Bruce, because there is a lot to recommend this show. You know, I think that the lore is deep and there's a lot of it. And I could totally see being 11 years old and totally getting into this. Like I can totally see that. You know, like there's and just talking about how anti-war the message is here, seeing your main character not be able to start up the robot because he's got mental issues because he's been in the robot for too long.
Yeah.
I can't remember ever seeing that anywhere ever. That never happened with Voltron, not once, not ever.
Yes.
And so, you know, that part is really neat. And as someone who grew up with Robotech, you know, that first series, like that first season series, whatever you want to call it, of Robotech is really great with Rick Hunter. But then the second season where there's blue people who are hanging out and like it's like almost unwatchable as a kid. Maybe it's great now, I don't know. But growing up, it was just slogging through that. And then you get to season 3 and it becomes the Invid and they've got to find Rick Hunter's old plane. And it's just awesome. So you get the first series and the third series. And that's what everybody remembers of Robotech and loves that. People who love Robotech, that's what they talk about. They're never talking about that middle run. And so with this, I can see where it's almost like people who love Buffy the series who are like, oh, Buffy the series is so amazing, except the first season. Oh, and season 5 towards the end is terrible, and forget about season 6 and 7. But Buffy is great. You know, like it's that kind of feel of show to me because there's so much there.
As long as you weren't on set, it was a great experience.
Or if you were a dude, it was totally fine.
Oh man. Oh boy.
I walked through that one unscathed. Huh?
No, I don't want to get sidetracked, but literally Joss Whedon was forbidden to be alone in the same room with Michelle Trachtenberg. That can't be good because she was like 15 or 16.
Well,
Yikes.
But anyway, I digress. Don't sue.
Yeah, and there's a lot there is a lot to recommend it. Like the tech is really cool. I really like that you have that character of Char where he's constantly wearing headdresses everywhere he goes. Yeah, I think that's
sunglasses. Neat. Even if he doesn't have the full-on headdress, he's still got the sunglasses. Like they do show us his eyes one time, and there's nothing weird about him. Like you fully expect him to be weird when you finally see him,
like lizard eyes, like V,
or holes in his eyes.
Expect him to like blink sideways, you know, like a nictitating membrane.
and so there's all of that stuff, and that stuff is really great. However, like we were saying during the Patreon stuff. Like I passed out watching this show. I'm watching this movie, and I know that you guys did too. And it's because it's repetitive, but it's repetitive because it's just taking the series and mashing it up into 17-hour.
I also think I would have done a little bit better with a dub on this one.
Mhm.
Like more contemporary stuff, I do prefer the subs, but for the older stuff, the dubs work just fine because that's the way it would have been shown in the US back then. And it kind of bugged me that I didn't seem to have a dub option on Netflix for this.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
sometimes I do that, like depending upon what it is and like when it probably would have been released, like in America or whatever. And I just go like, this 70s Kung Fu movie, they were watching, in America at least, they were watching this in dubbed English. So if you want that experience, that's kind of the way to do that. They weren't watching subs back then.
But when the brass hits the tax or whatever, when the fan hits the poo, what
going.
really is the greatest accomplishment of this show though is the design of that Gundam.
Yes.
Like that one image, that one character design, that one mobile suit is what carried this whole show. I mean, that is why people bought that's the model people were buying to put together. That influenced everything that came after this that has anything to do with the giant robot. I mean, you look at that is a Decepticon head.
Yes.
You see that is the character design of that original Gundam. That is what Transformers in robot mode look like. That's where your Voltron type robot inspirations are going to come from. I mean, it all starts here with that one character design, which is just amazing. Like it's that thing where everything else can be a little bit of a mired down mess that lacks focus, but you got that one key visual, and buddy, you're going to be selling those models and you're going to retire well.
It's amazing how well they smashed it out of the park with the design of that right away. Because to come against something that is like that big and complicated and detailed and everything, you wouldn't think that would be kind of their first draft, if you will.
But that's also like they knew that was their show.
Yeah, you can tell.
True.
I mean, it's like hero shot after hero shot of that thing.
Yeah, the whole point is this one has to stand apart from everything else. So they knew that like this is their Godzilla creature. They got to get this right or nothing else works. And then you look at like how uninspired the Zaku, I think that's what they're called, the Zaku mech suits that they're fighting from the Zeon Principality.
Were that the red ones?
The green ones.
The green ones.
Yeah, they're just totally uninspired. And then it just makes that Gundam suit shine. And then you even get like the ground battle mechas that back him up and they look okay, but it's that mobile Gundam that really shines.
I will say this, though. I thought that was a really great idea and something that I guess I'd never really seen before in any other show is talk about how, like, we designed all of these ones for, like, ground fighting and stuff like that. And so this mobile Gundam suit, the one that is like those but can actually fly and go all around places, that is obviously going to be the thing that's much more advantageous to you, winning these battles. I thought that was cool. I just never really saw that angle before.
And I like the idea. I don't know that it's necessarily quite like a RoboCop idea, but the idea that once that suit imprints on that 15-year-old kid, nobody else can fly that suit.
Oh, I like that.
At least that's the idea I always got. Like that all happened by accident. Like with RoboCop, in the RoboCop sequels, or at least in the Frank Miller comic book sequels, they keep trying to duplicate RoboCop, but nobody else's physiology is right for it. So it only works for what's his name?
It does kind of make sense, though, because he climbs into, he like sneaks into the cockpit there and everything and stuff. So yeah, and it is like it's a brand new thing. So yeah, that makes sense. I like it. It's
like a Rancor will only imprint on the first person it sees. I don't know if you know this or not.
Oh, finally something I can talk about. So
if it sees Machete before it sees Boba Fett, then it's all.
So that makes more sense than the way that I saw the show, because the way that I saw this story unfold is that 15-year-old boy, everyone's dying around him. He's like, oh, I better get in that really cool robot. So he does. And through Anakin Skywalker style luck.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Hey, spinning. That's a good trick. Hey. Then they, he saves the day. Then he gets out of the suit, walks into the leadership, and the leadership's like, well, that's your robot now. That's your pilot. That's what you're piloting. And I'm like, really? You're giving the 15-year-old kid the biggest weapon you have in your arsenal, but seeing that it's an imprinted thing, that makes it much cooler.
And also, I don't know that the show really says this, but it's in my head canon, and later incarnations will say this. But it's also a two-way street. Like, nobody else could pilot this because they didn't. Think of like the Pacific Rim. You know, the pilots have to properly neuralink. Not just anybody can do this. So I think later on, it's been kind of suggested or implied, or if nobody else has done it, I'm doing it now. Implied that it was like a two-way street. No, other people had tried to pilot it and couldn't get it to work, and it linked with him, and he's the chosen one. And it shows like he's there in a catatonic state, and the guy's putting his hand on the thruster and sending him out there to fight. You know, you don't do that if anybody else could just jump in and fly it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And also the idea that his dad is who built it and designed it. Maybe his dad put like the Neuralink. I've heard of other shows doing that, or comic book stuff. They do that just to protect their child.
Well, the great Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, Lord. So let me ask you this, Bruce, because I would guess that you know more. Well, I'm not guessing. I know that you know more than Adam and I when it comes to this to the subject. But is this the first show that does this kid is our savior and he's got the biggest weapon, or is it? I mean, is that something that's just a trope?
I mean, anime? I think it's. I think you look at Mighty Atom. What is the American name on that?
Gigantor.
We watched that movie,
Astro Boy.
Yeah, Astro Boy, Mighty Atom, Astro Boy. I mean, that's doing that in 1951, something like that. So yeah, probably not, but it's definitely doing it in a way that was very different for giant robot stories.
Sure.
At the time.
Sure. I think that when it comes to like the ending of this movie here, I got bored watching this thing, but towards the end of it, it started really picking up for me to the point where I was like, maybe I'm going to tune in and watch the second movie, And my guess is going to be that it's the same deal where they're just mushing a bunch of the series together.
I would recommend you're better off to watch the episodes.
And I just might, and I don't mean that in an Adam Portress way. I mean that I might actually.
You don't have to say the truth out loud.
You said the quiet part out loud.
Come on now.
Also, it does have that interesting ending where it gets you to start to humanize the separatists. Mm-hmm. And to start seeing, well, maybe they're not so bad after all. Like Char could be one of us. Who are the real bad guys here? And then the guy talks about wanting to be a dictator, and they're all saying Sig Zion, Sig Zion, Sig Zion. Like that was some pretty.
That was like, oh, whoa, okay.
Worrisome stuff, some fanaticism coming up there. To use the German word Sig along with a Japanese sort of mispronunciation of Zion, which we, link mostly with like Jewish tradition. So it's a kind of an offensive combination there. And then Japan's own history, not so great around that era. So, Kamino was absolutely wanting to call everybody out for what they had done.
Way to curb it there, Bruce. They don't have a really stellar track record in the 40s.
Telling you, Manchuria.
Oh boy. So Adam, what did you think of this? Did you like it?
I liked the idea and the feel of it more than the actual execution of everything. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that this seemed like more of a, we'll call it realistic depiction, if you will, or more realistic than one would imagine of kind of what this would be like, because there is a lot of like, war talk and strategy and stuff like this, talking here like, oh, we got to do this, but this and that and the other, and like, oh, here's how we do this one. I wasn't quite expecting that, but I liked it. But the problem is that, again, it was like it's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I could have used a little less of that, a little bit more action. But overall, like I said, there's enough tiny little bits every like 15, 20 minutes or so to kind of make you go like, oh, what's going on? Then you kind of fall off a little bit. Then there's another one. And I think now with Bruce talking about the episode kind of format sort of thing, it makes more and more sense that way.
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, man, my favorite part of this quote movie, end quote, is the flip from Char, where he sets up his guy and everybody gets murdered. Like that's that's pretty amazing, and that's a really great turn that I never saw coming. Did you guys see that coming?
No.
And
I didn't expect this to be that complex.
No, nor did I. And so to have that happen, and then to have, you know, the bad guy of your show seen as you know, like a man, I can't think of the word. Die when someone dies in battle, they become a
martyr.
You know, like having him become a martyr, like all of that. You know, you're not going to see that in Voltron.
No,
definitely not. And, you know, they talk about the futility of this whole situation from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the beginning, when they're explaining the Civil War that happened, they said that, you know, this Colony 7, which is the furthest one out, wanted independence, and the Earth Federation said no. And in the ensuing war, half their population died. So it's like their population shrunk more by fighting the war than it would have if they just let these people peacefully go about their business.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what did you guys think about the animation style overall? Again, 1981. So I was kind of astounded at how much of the style was still really in there, you know?
This was animated in 79. This movie was assembled in 81, but the episodes were made in 1979. No animation for the movie. But I mean, a lot of the animation that we watched on Saturday mornings was done in Japan. I feel like this does start to feel a little bit like anime, but it's not until later where you really start to feel the difference in like Western animation and anime, I think.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, Adam, that you're probably too young for this, but you know, I grew up and Bruce grew up with like Star Blazers and Battle of the Planets and things like that, and it feels of the same cloth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never had it.
Like I mean, when I won't say, I'm not going to speak for everybody else, but for a lot of folks, myself included, first time I see Voltron, I don't even realize necessarily that it's a Japanese animation. I just think it's a new show on because, you know, Transformers is animated in that same style. You know, you got that same kind of animation style with even Super Friends when you go back a little bit further. Mm-hmm. So the anime style of animation setting itself apart, I think, is something that came a little bit after this.
And you know, I maybe it's just me, but this has that same core group of people for your good guys that Voltron has, that Battle of the Planet has, where you've got the fat guy, you've got the little guy, you've got the leader, you've got the girl, you've got the anti-hero. You know, they're all in the same crew.
You got the clinically depressed PTSD suffering 15-year-old.
Well, that's the thing that sets it apart. But everything else, it's the same. You know, like you got your Pidge, your Hunk, your, you know, all of that, and so the princess, all of that jazz, and then and so like it feels like there's a lot of the same stuff in this show, which made it harder in the beginning for me to watch. You know, once you get into it more, then you get into it more. But it was the same beats coming for a while, and that's what made it a bit of a slog for me. It's like, okay, so this is just more of the same stuff that we've seen 100 times with just a way cooler robot in it. But then once you learn, oh, there is actually a lot more to this thing than just Pidge and Hunk and the princess and Derek and, you know, all that.
Yeah, but at least like at this time, it feels like they, again, I made the joke, but I think it's very true. Like the loadout scenes are just so long. Everything is in here. It's like now, like, and it's cool looking. Don't get me wrong. Like it's very neat to see all the, you know, mechs do all of their kind of crazy stuff and whatnot. But we're sitting there for a hot minute.
I was going to say those things work great in a 20-minute episode, not so great in a 2-hour and 20-minute movie.
But it looks so cool, and you've got all of these people that are really delivering this world, and that's why I'm thinking about like the actual television show and how that would, you know, show us all of this information, unlike maybe what this movie did, because we get going and they're like, no, this is your world, you're living in here. You get about like 3 minutes just at the top of like, here's basically what's going on, and they throw you into the story, and you just kind of got to catch up as it goes. So I kind of liked that, but it also in a show like this will make that drag out forever and a day, because we're seeing more actiony type stuff and loadout stuff than character stuff, if that makes sense.
And, you know, for people mine and Sean's age, a little bit older than you, Adam, just the overall nostalgia, like Sean said, this feels like every cartoon that you watched on Saturday morning before like the cartoons the network made came on. Like this feels like every action cartoon, whether it's Johnny Quest or I mean, it just feels like all that stuff that we watched circa 1980.
Now, so this is one of those. Do we know how many like different outings this all the Mobile Suit Gundam stuff has had at
dude,
this point?
look,
like it's unbelievable, right?
I mean,
we're talking 40 years worth.
Gee
yeah,
whiz.
and I think that basically it would be only super fans at this point who know all iterations of this. You know, I think it's kind of for someone who has a passing interest in it, like I do, or someone who's a little steeper into it, like Bruce is. Bruce, I mean, take a ballpark. Is there 40 iterations of this?
No, there's not 40 iterations, and I'm just talking about anime. I mean, when you throw on the comics and the novels and stuff, there might be 40. But
just moving pictures.
Yeah, just moving pictures. I'm going to say maybe 12 or 13.
Oh wow.
So according to I just looked on Wikipedia here, video games linked to Gundam. There's over a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like even just video games alone, not counting the stuff that was outside of Japan that that they say doesn't really necessarily count. So
I gotta say, as somebody who was totally into this stuff when I was a child, I could totally see being a child. Then you grow up, you start getting interested in the opposite sex or the same sex, no matter what your deal is. And then later on, you get back into it again, and you're like, oh man, this is awesome. This is the old familiar. It's just better.
I'm just reading the list on Wikipedia, and there is about 40.
Oh, is there?
I quit counting after I got to 20 something, but yeah,
man.
There is about 40. Like 4 of them came out in 2017.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But some of them are like original video animations and stuff, not like some of it is just 1 episode, some is 5 episodes, some is 6, and some is 50. So they're not all like full on, but Iron Blooded Orphans is 50. And that's one that if you really wanted to get into a great Gundam story, I think Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans would be the one to watch, Sean. It's got a modern sensibility to it, modern animation, and it's an incredibly heavy story. And it's on Netflix.
Neat. I might.
Does the kid stay the same age throughout all of it as like The Simpsons? He's been 15 for 40 years.
I would say several of the orphans probably die in horribly violent deaths.
The thing that I read,
a couple from natural causes.
The thing that I read was that I read that they wanted to kill off the main character in the first series.
Yeah, they wanted to kind of go Game of Thrones with it, and I guess the creator, the director, the writer did not have quite enough control over the project to actually do that. But yeah, I read that too, Sean, that he wanted to kind of Game of Thrones it and kill our main character in the middle and then say, what do you think about that? And I think the idea was for Char to become the new hero.
Amuro Ray.
Yeah,
Amuro.
I was hoping so let's compare this as far as the fights and everything are concerned versus Japanese Spider-Man.
Oh boy.
Because it's a lot of kind of sort of the same stuff in
Leopardon is a Gundam.
Yeah?
Yes, he is. He's also a Shogun warrior.
Yeah, but also I like that not only does our Gundam have swords, he has laser swords. And see, George, that would actually be called a laser sword. That's not a lightsaber proper. That indeed is a laser sword. See?
So I should sue Gundam. Okay.
No, that sounds like that's a good one. God, that guy out there. I love him, but I hate him at the same time. It's one of those things. You just can't. Then you see him in person, and you're like, that's the guy who created all the things I love. Well, I don't hate him. And then he leaves the room, and you're like, screw that guy.
Oh, man. Brian K. Vaughan brought in to write a live-action Gundam film.
Well,
I'm not going to lie to you. Like, while watching this, it did make me go, this could be something cool if it was done in live action and done by the right people that kind of get it.
Instead of the right people, it's Netflix.
Well, okay.
Which means it'll cost $90 million and look like it costs $20 million.
Well, we decided here. Well, no, they just put out a memo at Netflix. I don't know if you heard about this, where they were just like, "Y'all got to stop spending money like this. We ain't playing."
Yeah.
Brian K. Vaughan, a great comic book writer. I don't know if he's ever worked as a screenwriter.
He has
little movies called Kingsman.
Yes, and he is one of the head writers on Lost.
Oh yeah. Way back in the day.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's where he got his live action start, was working on Lost.
Well, cool. I didn't know that. All I know, of course, is the comics stuff.
It's why he was out of comics for as long as he was because of that.
Oh, and he wrote that show Under the Dome.
Oh boy,
I never.
No one's perfect.
But yeah, if they do a live action Gundam on Netflix, I'll watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. So would I. At this point now, I've always had interest in this, but at this point now, because I feel a little invested in this, I would watch more, especially if there's
Iron-Blooded Orphans. That's what
I'm totally gonna. When we were kids, Bruce, one of the things that I watched constantly was Transor Z.
Oh, really?
Yes, I watched that.
I never watched that one.
I watched it.
It felt like, I don't know, it felt like for the dirty kids.
It was. I mean,
you
it
were
was
one
like,
of them dirty kids, weren't you?
It was dollar store Voltron.
Yes, exactly.
But what I learned as an adult is that robot is super, super famous outside of the American bastardized version called Transor Z. Like, there is an updated, like fully CGI movie with that character. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we never saw. Like, and so when you're watching Dollar Store Voltron and you're like, I feel a little dirty watching this show, but I'm going to watch it anyway because it's got a big robot in it.
That's like, the guy that's so desperate he's drinking mouthwash. Like, you're so hard up for your cartoon fix, you're watching Transor Z.
That is a good simile, because that is exactly what it felt like.
Rock bottom.
Voltron isn't on right now. There's no Transformers. I'm going to have to watch dirty Transor Z.
Oh, man, they did not deserve to be belittled by Bruce that way, but there it goes.
Dollar store Voltron is really just, we put a whole bunch of pieces of toys in a bag and half a thing of Scotch tape and just tell you to have at it.
Adam, to give you an example of how low grade this thing was, like the Transor Z robot was really cool. But Transor Z, once you get further into the story, there is also Aphrodite A, which is a robot whose main defense system are boobs that shoot out and hit the bad guys.
I think we watched the wrong thing this week.
So what
Sean.
you're saying is this is from Japan, you say? I just want to clarify.
And then the guy who works on the Transor Z robot is this like filthy car repairman, except for he works on robots, and he made his own robot. His name is Bubba, and he made a robot called Bubba Bot. It is made of spare parts, and it is. And if Transor Z wasn't like dollar store enough for you, now you've got a discount on the discount, and it was awful and amazing at the same time.
We had so many, like it's kind of astounding though, like even from this in the early 80s here with all this, giant mech robot stuff, how that's really continued on and gone out into so many other different things where it's not like it's just these guys, you're not cornering the market on giant robot suits and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that this has had that kind of cultural impact to make everyone else go, wait a second,
counted 27 different series in double-digit episodes. That's not counting all the short runs. And stuff. And it's kind of like Star Trek, where the timeline is all over the place. Like you've got what we just watched is UC 0079. They've got one that takes place in AD 2314. They've got one that takes place in AD 2307. They got like a bunch in that 079, but then they got like 96. Iron-Blooded Orphans is post-disaster 323. So 300 years plus in the future. Like it's just all over the place, this timeline too. And then there's several that take place in our century. And I think those are the ones where you're playing like a video game. It's about people who get really into their Gundam build divers re-rise.
What they don't tell you is
Like,
that the Gundam
in
series,
the year 2019.
it's actually is all stars Doc Brown in all of these mobile Gundam suits. He's just traveling around from time to time, flying a couple of robots, and
The
going on
show's
to the
been
next
around
place.
so long it has a collectible card game.
That's the character's name in Japan. Transor Z is Mazinger Z.
Oh my god!
Oh, I like that name.
I will say this: I saw like a video a couple of years back of the I don't know if it was like the Gundam store or something or whatever in Japan. They had a life-size Gundam outside of their store, and it is
Yeah,
one of the most insane looking things I've ever
And
seen.
it moves, right?
I don't know. Well, the one
They've
I
got some. They
there
do
probably
it
is
for
one out there.
anniversaries. Yeah, for anniversaries they do these like big Gundam, and it'll move a little bit. I mean, it's not like it's running and doing jumping jacks, but like an arm and a leg or whatever will move up and down. And they do it for key anniversaries.
That's awesome.
I
50
like
feet
that
tall.
the idea is that they come in and they're like, all right, everybody, for this demonstration, this Gundam's going to do jumping jacks. That's your idea of of what a Gundam does. He doesn't do any spins or jumping jacks or
Yeah,
nothing.
here's-
Just moves his arms a little.
Here's one that made its debut in 2020. And its arm is moving and its legs are moving, but it's clearly on like a frame. It can't walk around, but it is amazing how much movement this gigantic Gundam's got going.
Well, yeah, you got to make sure that their feet are stapled to the ground, lest they get sentient and start killing everybody in the crowd. Then you've got
Nobody
a whole
wants
thing
that.
going. It's
Nobody
too much.
wants that.
And lest you also get a rogue 15-year-old, as we saw in this movie, just plop his butt down in that thing, and then they're like, well, I guess it's his now.
Oh, you know, when that thing was unveiled in Japan, that every 15-year-old in the area was running to try to climb inside.
Yes, of course.
Finally, my prayers have been answered.
We had to spike the seat so kids wouldn't sit in it.
I sent you guys a video of this thing.
Yeah, I've seen this before. It's really cool.
But yeah, listen. So what? One more time. What was the one that you're recommending that people see? That
Iron-Blooded Orphans is the series I'd recommend.
Iron-Blooded Orphans. That is about a group of orphans who work in an iron milling factory. It's good.
Correct.
That's a documentary and occurs in real time. All right. Well, before we get to our final review here for this thing and kicking off more anime, we have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this 41-year-old anime, good luck with this one, relates back one-to-one with Sylvester Stallone.
Mr. Stallone, how are you? I'm doing well. Though if I'm being honest, I'm a little bummed out by this week's Stallone connection. Mobile Suit Gundam I is connected to you through voiceover guy Brad Swaley. He does the English dub of Amuro Ray, boy pilot of the Mobile Suit Gundam, and he was also the voice of Ollie the Superfan in the Ratchet and Clank movie, a movie where you, Mr. Stallone, supply the voice of the character Victor. What I can't figure out, Mr. Stallone, is why in God's name did you agree to do the movie? Did you give them your screw off price and then they said yes and you had to go ahead and do it? Did they have information on you that you didn't want made public? Did they kidnap a loved one and force you to do the job? These are the only reasons I can think of, because there's no way you're a fan of the source material. You never bought a PlayStation because you wanted to play all 11 Ratchet and Clank games. You never yelled out loud in exultation, "This is even better than Spyro." I bet you didn't even know this was a video game. In fact, I can bet that you can't say the words video games without making some stupid joke about Pong. And that is why I'm bummed out, Mr. Stallone. I'm bummed out for the people who created Ratchet and Clank, because the entire game was a labor of love. The good folk at the little boutique studio who created Ratchet and Clank wanted to make a game that was immersive and fun and something that people had never seen before. And when I did a deep dive into the history of this game, I found out that the company responsible for creating these games is this little boutique studio known as, and guys, maybe if you know it, I want to make sure that I pronounce this name correctly so I can get it right. Let's see if I'm pronouncing this right. Sony.
Oh, it's a foreign one, but I think you got it.
Okay,
I think it's
good.
a Vietnamese company, but you nailed it.
Sony. These salt of the earth everymen love Ratchet and Clank and hope to take their little game that could take it to the next level. I don't remember this movie ever coming out, but to be fair, 2016 was a very busy year for me. So it's possible that this made a bunch of people's radar. But the movie only made $12 million worldwide on a $20 million budget, which means if it got on people's radar, people looked at their radar screen and said, no, thank you. Not only is there never going to be a sequel, but it's quite possible that Sony set fire to all traces of this movie, including some of the voice cast, but not Brad Swaley, because that guy's constantly working. He's working on projects like Gigantosaurus and Superbook and Marvel Battle World, which is something I've never heard of. And Marvel Battle World totally sounds like our kind of bag. So in conclusion, why, Sly? Why? Why did you agree to be in this project? And I hope whoever they kidnapped is back safe and is enjoying their second lease on life. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
And as always, put some vibes out there. Just, think to yourself, Sylvester Stallone, Hero Movie Podcast. Maybe one day he'll just pick up on the vibes and, go over to his phone and go, you know what? I need to check out this HMP I've been hearing so much about.
Best case scenario in my head right now is that he hears 5 minutes of this and goes, I hate him. I hate them.
Hey, listen,
best case scenario.
Listen, we've had, we'll call them similar before.
Yeah, it's true.
We'll call it similar. So it's just like, oh, not a fan. All right, fair enough.
True.
I understand, and frankly, I get it.
No.
All right, so let's get down to it here at Hero Movie Podcast. We have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does the OG Mobile Suit Gundam fall in the Robin rating system for you?
As we've already made clear, you want to watch the episodes. You don't really want to watch the movie. I don't think that the movie adds anything to it. You don't save anything. I think you're better off just checking out the episodes. Mm-hmm. It's something that's better for the legacy that it has and what it said and what it introduced than it is for the actual experience of watching it. But there's enough nostalgic fun and to appreciate that like iconic Mobile Suit Gundam robot thing that just hit it out of the park on the first swing. It's still, I'm still going to give it like middle of the road Damian Wayne, but man, it's something you won't have to sit through beginning to end without taking a break.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sean?
Yeah, for me, it's a Damian Wayne also. It sparked my interest enough to want to see more, even though this was a bit of a slog. So Damian Wayne. Yeah,
Damian Wayne's all around. For me, it was just kind of, you're right. There's enough of a seed there to plant a little bit of interest into like you said, just somebody points you towards, no, this is the stuff you need to be watching. And that would, kind of probably do it for me. But overall, yeah, I liked it. Had that about 45 minutes in that first one. I was just like, I'd only had a few hours of sleep the night before. And I was like, I got to get a nap in. So I got like 2 hours in, then came back and finished it all out. But I think a dub would have helped for this one, just so you could not have to. Because there is a lot of dialogue, because they're breaking down exactly what they're doing all the time. So it would have been nice to have been able to just kind of listen to that and be able to, watch the visuals 100% at the exact same time. But that's more of a me.
And I hope you like watching people missing their target, because there is so much of that in this show.
There is one guy. There's one robot who's like flying through the air. One of these, it's like probably one of the red ones, I think. And 8 billion lasers being shot at this guy. Not a one of them hitting him. Like there's 15 dudes shooting at this. Y'all can't, not one of you can hit it? My goodness. A little bit.
Yeah, we make fun of stormtroopers also.
Yeah. But yeah, Damian Wayne for me. So Damian Wayne's all around there. That's that nice middle of the road. Not too shabby. Well, that will do it for this episode of Hero Movie Podcast. We'll be talking about what we're doing next week in just a moment. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Well, I haven't been up to much the last couple of weeks. I've been healing up, so I haven't had a whole lot out there, but hopefully I'll get back into the routine to get some videos out on YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie for my Anime Dad YouTube content.
Now, Sean, it's been a lovely week outside of, the 2.5 hour slog that this thing was, but we also didn't have to sit down for another episode of Marvel 30 Questions. However, that said, we got a little bit of time and something else is coming up, yeah?
That's right. We have Obi-Wan coming up on our Star Wars feed. So please show up for that. It is the thing I've been most looking forward to this year, which means that it's going to burn in utter infamy as one of the worst things that's ever been done. But I have such high hopes for this show. I really, really want it to be great. As a massive Star Wars fan, I don't need it to be great, but it would be really, really nice if it were. So please show up for our 30 questions on that. And I'll tell you something: if it is a nightmare, if it is just more awfulness, I'm going to burn all of my Star Wars toys. That's what I'm going to do.
He's just turning into Milton. I'm going to burn this place down.
It's just, I need it to be great is too much. I really, really want it to be great. That's all I'm asking for. I don't need it to be The Mandalorian, because The Mandalorian is almost like a miracle how great that show is.
It shouldn't work, but does.
Yes. And I don't need to be constantly shocked and constantly surprised. I just need it to be really good. That's all I want.
That trailer,
So
though,
please.
I didn't watch the second one. I watched the first trailer, and I was just like, this is everything that I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Please don't screw up.
Yeah. And the third one just came out this week.
I didn't watch. I was just like, oh, no.
I couldn't help myself. I had to. And oh my, and that music kicks in and everything you want it to be is there. And it's just, oh my, I have such high hopes.
It's almost as if that John Williams knows what he's doing there.
I know.
That guy, he got a couple of keys in there, not too shabby.
He's only 117 years old and keeping the franchise on his shoulders.
It's just like, listen, I'm retired, but those residual checks, boy, they still cash. Yes, they do. All right. Well, like I said, that'll do it for this week's episode, but more anime coming up for us next week. I'm going to be going with now, and this is the best part too, is I can throw him under the bus if all goes south. Matthew Van Diver has hooked up with me. We've been talking a little bit, and we decided that we're going to be doing Captain Harlock, Arcadia of My Youth. That's from 1982, so only 1 year removed from Mobile Suit Gundam. So,
and it's an anime you have to watch on Peacock, for real.
Yeah, it's an anime that's on Peacock. Yeah, Peacock. So check that out. It's another. I'm not gonna let me tell you right off, just so you're prepared. And that you may want to start watching this early, because it's another one of these damn things that's 2 hours and 10 minutes long. So maybe you want to, depending upon what it is, maybe you want to break it up into chunks over the following week.
There's like a ton of Captain Harlock stuff. Which one did you say this was? The Queen of 1,000 Years?
Arcadia of My Youth.
Queen of 1,000 Years. You've made the turn, Bruce Leslie. You are officially old.
Here's the log line for Captain Harlock. Legendary space Captain Harlock makes his debut in this anime classic. Following in the footsteps of his warrior ancestors, Harlock fights to free Earth's oppressed from evil forces.
Okay, Vandiver, here's the deal. If this is good, then I'm going to give you a free pass for that terrible take that you had on Twitter about Die Hard.
What was the take? I don't know.
Die Hard 3 is the best Die Hard. You can jump off a building.
It's the second best Die Hard. I'll give him that.
It is the second best Die Hard. It's the only other good Die Hard. But please, Cracker, please.
I'm middle of the road on Live Free or Die Hard. It's not as horrible, but it's certainly not.
Well, when compared to the rest of the franchise, that looks like a wonderful piece of cinema.
The one after that's worse, though. You got to admit that.
That's what I'm saying. That is literally what I'm saying.
Yeah. So that's Captain Harlock, Arcadia of My Youth from 1982, currently available on Peacock. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for some more anime. For Sweet Sean's Kovac from the internet, Bruce Leslie. I'm Anna Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
Madman drums, brothers, Indians in the summer with the teenage diplomat. In the dumps with the most as the adolescent bumps his way into his hat. With a boulder on my shoulder, feeling kinda older, I trip the merry-go-round. With his very pleasing, sneezing and wheezing, the collide. 31 sun into something strong. Played a song with the funky break. And go-kart Mozart was checking out the weather chart to see if it was safe outside. And little early birdie came by in his curly whirly and asked me if I needed a ride. Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Wrapped up like a deuce, another runner in the night. In the dark with the lumps as the adolescent pumps his way to his night. With a boulder on my shoulder, feeling kinda older, I trip and go round. With his flurry of pleasing, sneezing and wheezing, Calliope crashed to the ground. Now Scott with a slingshot blindly found a tender spot, rolled over in his hand. And some bloodshot forget-me-nots and daddies within earshot take the bloodshot turn of the band. Some selling cold sister with the manager, mister. Oh, me, I got what it takes. She said, I'll turn you on, sonny, to something's wrong. She got down, but she never caught Tati's gonna make it.